So I'll say again later, but we're scheduled for the final exam to be published a week from today. We'll have several days to complete it. I will send it. I will send it as a Word document rather than stupid crazy quiz that I tried to do for the midterm, which everybody had problems with, including me. And then you can do it. It'll be, you're monitoring yourself. You can use your books, your notes, everything. The question is, can you find enough and know enough about what you're supposed to know to be able to find the answer? That's my measuring stick at this point for the final.
Yes.
So then it'll be due Monday the 23rd, the Monday before Thanksgiving. We now know that actually I thought the semester ended before Thanksgiving, but I was just informed Monday that the actual end of the semester is the first week in December. So folks have still got another week to get papers and stuff in if it's not done yet. A little grace is good. So any questions about that from the two of you?
No.
I said with the invitation for today's class, this little study guide, 2-page bunch of questions and suggestions for preparing for the final. And then there's a bunch of stuff in there that you can kind of use as these are things that I think it's important for you to kind of focus on. I realized I just looked at it again this morning and I apparently put two lists from last year together and I didn't edit it, so there's a couple of duplications of questions on there. Do not send something out before you proofread it. Didn't I say that at one point? Don't worry about that. Just because it's in there twice doesn't mean it's twice as important. So I just put it up on the screen so you can look at it. There's some big issue questions on here, and then there's some little details questions on here. As I said on the video on Monday, I want you to kind of be able to think about these religions now at the end of the semester. Be able to get a sense of how do they compare and contrast. We studied whole little raft of different ones with different perspectives, different times in history, different cultures. And then how do they compare and contrast? And the reason for that is it's easier to learn something if you can say, how is that like something else I already know? And how is that different from something else I already know? And that's just a kind of an ordinary way, a regular way we learn stuff. So number 2 on this list. Oh, good. Here's number 2 on this list is to just make a chart of the similarities and differences between some of the religions we've studied. Just pick a couple of them and think about what are their ideas about God? How did it get started? What was the original experience of this religion? What are their basic practices? What are their ideas of God? What are their ideas of salvation? And compare and say, how are they alike and how are they different? That will help you get a handle on these religions. Hello, Kia. Glad to see you.
Everybody.
Hey. So that's that number 2 is a good way of kind of summarizing as you go through your notes and go through your readings. You can just kind of keep some notes about, well, here's early Christianity around 300 of the Common Era. and what they were struggling with, what they thought about, what are the ideas about God, and how does that compare with white Anglo-Saxon, white American Christianity? How does that compare with Buddhism? How does that compare with Islam? And let that kind of guide to help you understand more about how those religions work. And it might be helpful for the exam as well. Just guess. The number 3 is a similar kind of thing. As you're reading through and studying, put a timeline and talk about when in history did this religion start. For example, Judaism, which we didn't actually study, but we kind of talked about it in the first chapter of Armstrong. The Exodus was probably around 2000 years before Christ, before the Common Era. Probably Hinduism started around that time, maybe 1800 in India. Then we had Buddha. When was Plato? When was Jesus? When was Islam? All those kind of things you can kind of put together. You have in your head. It's hard to get a timeline of history in your head, but if you kind of write it down and look at it, it really helps. This came before that. The Declaration of Independence came before Lincoln's Gettysburg Address in American history. That's very important. 75 years difference between the two of them. So the timeline. Number 1 there, the theory of experiences of the transcendent. That was how we started the class. And that's the basic theory. And I talked about that quite a bit in the video from Monday. That's the basic theory that helps us understand all of these different religions. It's based on a philosophical understanding of religions that's called phenomenology, that is looking at the actual experience of the religion and not just the doctrines and the ideas and the differences. So as you remember that theory of the experience of the transcendent, what was that? How did it start? What was it all about? Let's review that.
Are you speaking of like how people like thought of God or what they thought of him? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and starting with some kind of an experience that led them to have ideas about God, right? And what you just said, Pia, is the same thing I'm saying. Is we're talking about ideas of God, which is how people think about God, right? So I had a 5-point plan there. Anybody remember how that 5-point plan worked?
I don't remember.
I outlined it in Monday's, in the video I did for you Monday, and there was also an extensive video on it at the beginning of the semester. So I would suggest you go back and look at that, called The Experiences of the Transcendent. So each one of the religions had started with some kind of an experience that's transcendent. For Islam, for example, it's very clear. Muhammad went off to pray, and then all of a sudden he had this experience of an angel speaking to him, telling him to write this down, and that then led him to understand God in a different way, and he shared it with other people, and that became a religion. But it started with that experience, and Buddha had an experience under the Bodhi tree. Jesus had an experience in the desert with the temptations. Moses had his experience with the burning bush. All of those were experiences where something holy is going on here. What is it? How does it make sense of it? And that's how different religions got started, different ways. So and we'll talk about it again next Wednesday, but check that one out. That's the whole underlying theory for this course that helps, in my mind anyway, it helps us understand how did different religions get to be different. If they all start from some sort of experience of the mystery, this mystery that surrounds us and is all in us and through us and beyond us and completely ununderstandable in lots of ways, how did we get to different religions? And this theory sort of puts it in an order and helps us understand. So that's number one on the list of the study guide. Well, let's talk about the next questions are about kind of about some details. What are the differences between polytheistic, monotheistic, and non-theistic or atheistic religions? This is not a trick question. This is
polytheistic is multiple gods.
right.
Multiple gods, small gods. And then monotheistic would be the one God.
Right. There is only one God, right?
Yes. And then non-theistic would be atheist or non-belief in any God. Yes.
There is the God, or if there is, it
No
doesn't
God.
really matter. Right.
Yes.
We actually talked about another one I didn't put in there, was henotheistic. Remember that one? I should have put that one on there.
Oh, yes. There are multiple gods, but one is it that only one is higher than the other? Something I sort of forget. I have to look back at my notes.
There are all these other gods out there, and we have decided we're going to follow this one.
This one, okay, yes.
We've chosen this one. Which
Chosen,
is
okay.
probably true of early Judaism. There were all these other gods, and then God and Yahweh said, "Take me as your only God. Have no other God." That the commandment, "Have no other gods before me," is really about put aside all the other gods that are out there and just believe in me. Yeah. Any the following one. That's another way of just laying out different religions. Who can you name a polytheistic religion that you study?
Buddha, no. I have to pull my notes out. Yes, Hinduism.
Right. Yeah. Hinduism, except they say they're mono, except they got millions of gods. Yeah.
Yes.
The other one that we looked at that is actually polytheistic was many of the traditional or indigenous African religions have many
Yes.
gods and many spirits.
Yes.
And a high sky god that was over them all, but it was still pretty much polytheistic. Can you name a non-theistic or an atheistic religion that we study? It's tricky.
Hello?
Hello, Gary, is that you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Welcome.
I'm sorry I'm late, but I was having trouble dialing you this morning.
I'm sorry to hear about that. We're in the middle of reviewing, we're using the study guide that I sent out with the invitation.
Yes,
That's
yes, I got it.
And Gary, you got a lot of noise behind you. Can you mute yourself? Would help. Thank you.
Mhm.
So what's a non-theistic or atheistic religion we study?
Mhm.
Well, there's Ricky. Hey, Ricky. Good to see you.
I'm thinking.
So, so clearly, Islam and Christianity are definitely monotheistic. They say
Yes.
there's only the one God. It's
Yeah.
confused in Christianity because we have a Trinity of God in three persons, but it's still,
Mhm.
we insist it was still, that's only one God.
Mhm.
So that only leaves one that we haven't talked about, haven't mentioned, as a non-theistic or atheistic religion.
I cannot think. I've gone through my notes.
Anybody else got a guess? Guessing is okay. This isn't the final.
Would it be Buddhism?
Yeah. Why do you think? Yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, that makes sense.
Because that was one we hadn't talked about, and I mean we hadn't said.
That's one we hadn't said,
And
right?
I was guessing.
Yeah. Good guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more idealism, right? Not
Yeah.
like a way of life or, yeah, that makes sense. Because they never, they don't talk about God.
Yeah. Hinduism had all those gods and all that stuff. And Buddha said, let's just let that go. The most important thing is enlightenment, detachment,
Yes.
and compassion.
Right. Okay.
That's all we need to worry about. We don't need to worry about what God is like or who God is or anything else. It's up to us. So yeah. That's why you were right, Kia. So good. All right. Let's go down to another detail. Number 5 here. What are the houses of worship called in each of the major religions we've studied? So we have Christian, Muslim, we have Hindu, we have Buddhist. Those are the main ones that we looked at that have specific stuff, and so what do we call a house of worship in the Christian church? Yeah, in the Christian belief.
It would be like church.
Yeah, very simple. We call it a church. What do we call it in the Muslim faith?
A mosque.
Yep. Mosque. Mosque. What do we call the Hindu houses of worship?
So,
How about Buddhist? What do we call that? We may not have talked about that enough last 2 weeks. Hindus have temples, and Buddhists have sometimes they call them temples, but often it's the meditation center. Um, and sometimes they call it a temple. Okay. Okay, now the next one is one we've touched on a couple of times, but I don't know if you really caught on. What are the three Abrahamic religions? Who is Abraham? Let's start with that.
A prophet.
Yeah, he's probably, there's another word for him besides the prophet. He was called the patriarch of the Jewish faith.
Yeah, the father of a nation.
So what faiths all include some understanding of connection to Abraham and the family of Abraham? Reconstruction going on there? So Abrahamic faiths. So probably we didn't actually study this one, but the Jewish religion is the obvious one. All the Jewish religion folks that follow themselves back to Abraham as their father, their founder, uh, laying the descendants way back, all the way back to him. When God called Abraham in the Bible, called Abraham to go down to Canaan and create a new place and found a new nation, that was the Jewish people. So what other religions also tie themselves back to that?
Christianity.
Yeah. How's that?
Uh,
So what religion
I
was
just know that he's considered. Sorry.
what religion was Jesus?
Jewish.
Yeah. Jesus was a Jew. He was not a Christian. There weren't any Christians before Jesus. He was purely Jewish. He belonged to the Jewish
Right.
community. He believed in the God of Judaism, and that was the God he proclaimed as his father, as his maker. Yeah, and thus he tied himself back in that Jewish faith back to Abraham.
Okay.
He mentions Father Abraham. Now there's a third one that also ties the ethnic connections back to Abraham.
Would it be Islam?
Yeah, why do you say that?
Because what was it? Um, Muhammad
Right?
have like experience from the angel,
Yeah,
and they never read the Bible if I remember right when they were in this group, and I'm trying to remember. Uh, they never read the Bible, but they heard of they heard about the story about some of the prophets. Like one of is Abraham, the other one was I'm trying to remember where I read. Um,
Yeah, that's right. They tied themselves back to and Muhammad likes to claim that his religion was the true descendant of Abrahamic religion, um, and that got down to the the children of Abraham, and there was one that was, but they went in different directions, and one became the parent of all the Arabian people. And so they see themselves as descendants of that Semitic Middle Eastern family. I also talked about Muhammad and his people felt out of place in around the 6th century of the Common Era because the Jews and the Christians had their own God and their own prophets, but God had never spoken to the Arabs. And so this tied them in with this tradition of what they saw around them. All the trading was done, and so they saw themselves as heirs to that whole process. So that when groups of religious people get together in Louisville, for example, often those three groups get together and do things together because they see a kinship. Their religions are similar in lots of ways. They're monotheistic. They believe that God calls people to a just and moral life, concern and compassion for the people who are unfortunate. And there's a lot of the similarities in the values of those three religions. So that's another way of talking about how these three religions are alike in a lot of ways. So working through this, looking at these questions. Question number 7, differences in the beliefs about life after death in these different religions. So the Christians, the Buddhists, Hindus, and the Muslims. What do they believe, and what gets them into life after death?
That I know Hinduism, if you got good karma, you go to a good path. You go to a in their term, um,
Yeah, you're on it.
in their term, you go to the, I can't remember, it's like the spirit world.
So yeah, what do they believe about what happens to the soul after the body dies?
I know if you do bad things, right, that you become, you turn into like, I think some kind of animal or something.
Yeah. And what's the word for that? What they believe about what happens to the soul after death, based on your karma?
Reincarnation.
Yeah, reincarnation. As I think that's the same word as incarnation that we believe in terms of Christianity, that Jesus was God in the body. This talks about what happens to your soul when your body dies. Your body is reincarnated, put into another body of something or another, and it could be a cow, it could be a bug, or it could be another person, and you could be getting better, or you could be getting lower on the chain of life, depending on how you live your life, on the karma, the law of cause and effect.
Mhm. And Hinduism take on that same philosophy of life, birth, life, and death, and the reciprocal, just keeps going until you get to a certain point, and they consider it to be nirvana, like you've reached.
Yeah. And eventually you get to perfection, and you get to go on to complete eternal bliss, in effect, right? Yep. Part of the cycle. So what other religion also believes in reincarnation?
That would be Buddhism.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But it's slightly different. They do believe that the soul goes into another something, and they do believe that sort of it's about karma, but it's not so much just the moral stuff as it is in Buddhism, but they believe it has to do with enlightenment. Seeing the light about the truth about the world, getting understanding about, oh, it's really about suffering, and it is really about detaching from that suffering and being compassionate to other people. And that's how you move up the reincarnation ladder in Buddhism, as opposed to just, did you do good or did you do bad in Hinduism? That's the distinction there. The new thing that Buddha put together. So what do Christians believe about life after death, and what's salvation?
Go to heaven.
Heaven or
They
hell?
believe you go to heaven. Yep. Heaven.
By simply believing that God is. It's not action-based.
Yeah. The purest understanding of what the Bible says about Christianity, about salvation, is it's through your belief, your faith in Jesus as the Savior, and in God, that depends, and that your eternal destiny belongs. There's no reincarnation in Christianity. It's, well, you got one life, and whatever your result in that life is, that's what the result is. You only go around once. Right. How is it for the Muslims?
Okay, Ron, I can't even think.
Bringing you in on your phone, Kia?
I can't see good on my phone, so I need to have it bigger. So I can hear y'all on my phone good, but I can see on the laptop.
Great, good. Welcome back.
Muslims would be a total submission to the religion, total submission to Allah,
Yeah,
and also in doing good.
yeah, and you do follow the five pillars.
Pillars. They have the 5 pillars.
So it's a combination of faith, or submission, and a moral life. Yeah. And there is a notion of heaven. I don't know what they believe about hell. There, the, but there is that belief that there is an eternal reward for Muslims as well. And so there's no reincarnation. So similarities between Muslims and Christians in that respect, because they're pretty much out of the same model of belief like Judaism, Christianity, and then Muslims. That's how you begin to tie things together. Hindus and Buddhists are more alike in that they believe in reincarnation. It's slightly different, but there is that similarity. They're more alike in those respects. Okay. There are some Christians who are more focused on the moral life or decision about heaven and hell, and they'll talk about, well, when I die, I will go to be judged by God, and God will decide whether I was good enough to get into heaven. That's very popular in a lot of portions of Christianity. So there's some divisions in Christianity about that. All right. So as you see, those of you who've gotten in, we're just reviewing the whole semester in terms of getting ready for the final exam. Kind of going through the study guide, which I put out, and I will edit it and revise it and put it back up later today. You can go through these, what have I got? 22 questions to get yourself ready for the exam. Let me stop and see, do you have questions about anything that we talked about or anything in general that you want to ask me about as you're trying to make sense of the semester, getting ready for the exam, or anything else about the class? I don't want to just focus. We've got another Wednesday next week to do some more reviewing.
No, not right now.
Okay. The study guide will give you, and what we talked about in class today and next Wednesday will give you real clues about what to study for and how to prepare for the exam. The basic idea is, so well, the first basic idea is get all your reading done and your papers done as soon as you can, although I can give you until the first week in December to get your papers in if you haven't gotten them done. But that they're a basic part of your study for understanding the whole exam. I mean, the whole class, the whole exam. But look again at your readings, pull out the 2 books and the 3 books and kind of skim through those and see what you remember, what you can, like, look at your notes. Then you can pull up the videos of the classes and the videos I did on the Mondays for the semester if there's something you don't quite understand. If you go through a lot of that, there's stuff you don't quite understand, you can also email me and I'd be happy to help you get at finding the answers you're looking for. The job here is not to trick you up so that you fail, but to encourage you to do what you need to do in order to succeed. Any other questions?
Oh.
When is the final?
I will put it up on, well, I'll either I'll both email you and put it up on Canvas, a Word document of the final next Wednesday afternoon. You will have until the following Monday to complete it on your own. It will be multiple choice and matching and what did I say they were going to be? Yeah. Well, multiple choice matching and fill in the blanks. There will be one essay question. You can use your books and notes and whatever you need to complete the exam. The difference is, by definition of a scholar, is you need to know where to find stuff. There's only a limited time to get it done. That's the test question. I want you to get it done between Wednesday evening, the 18th, and Monday night, the 23rd of November, the Monday before Thanksgiving. Does that answer your question, Kia?
Yeah, sorry, I just hadn't looked at the bottom yet. Sorry about that.
That's all right. No, that's a perfectly fair question. It's also, you can also find it in the modules, all that kind of stuff. If you have any problems with it all, let me know when I get it out. You should be able to just download the Word document and then edit it yourself to fill in the stuff and then save it and then email it back to me. There'd be a very simple way of doing that. And I will let you know after Thanksgiving what you did on it, and after you get all your papers and stuff in, get to give you what your semester grade is. Other questions? So let me, we got a few more minutes here. Let me go back to the detail in the question on the study guide. And bring up in number 8, what role did Arius play in understanding the understandings and ideas of God in early Christianity? And I see I misspelled his name. It should be Arius. Sorry about that. That was like the 3rd or 4th week of the class. We talked about chapter 3 or 4 of Armstrong and the ideas of God in early Christianity, where we came up with the Christianity that came up with the idea of the Trinity. Who was Arius and what role did he play?
He created, well, actually his belief of the legacy of Jesus Christ and how it formed Christianity.
How that, I didn't hear the last part. And how what?
How he created Christianity, his belief of Christianity. He developed the legacy of Jesus Christ.
He had a particular view of the whole question was, who exactly was Jesus and was Jesus divine? Right.
He believed like he's the Savior and the Son of God.
Well, so did Athanasius, who was on the other side of the story. That didn't quite tell the whole story, Ricky. There's another piece of that.
Try to remember.
Anybody else remember Arius? You're getting close.
So Arius, so he kind of believed, he believed something against the main doctrine of the church, like openly. He went against the thought of, I guess, the belief in Jesus Christ.
Well, specifically, what about it? It was a specific idea about Jesus. You need to go back to chapter 4 of Armstrong, and she talks quite a bit in that early part of that chapter about Arius and his views. Arius and the opponent was Athanasius. They were both African leaders of Christianity, real theologians thinking carefully, and they were all influenced by the philosophy of the Greek philosopher. Who was the Greek philosopher they were all influenced by?
Was it Constantine? No.
Constantine was the emperor that pulled it all together. This goes way back in the class.
So I know he debated how could Jesus be the Christ. I mean, how could Jesus Christ have been God in the same way as God the Father?
That's the debate between these.
That was the debate.
That's right. It wasn't settled yet, and Arius strongly believed one thing, and Athanasius strongly believed the other. They were both struggling with the philosophical ideas of this dude named Plato.
Okay, yeah, Plato. I just got to.
Plato was forgotten, third or fourth century before the Common Era philosopher of Greece, and his philosophy was very popular in and around the whole Mediterranean, the Roman Empire, in this early few hundred years of Christianity, and people love these great ideas of it's a dualistic view of the world, because God is so far away from the world, and there's another perfect world. This world is imperfect, it's chaotic, it's changing, it's temporary, and it's just shadows of the real perfect world, that where we get some of our ideas about heaven, in fact. So if God is part of this perfect world, and this world is so different, how the issue became, how could Jesus, who was a real live human being, a Jew in Palestine under Roman rule of his time, how all of a sudden do we believe that he was God? Because God and people are two different stuff. That the stuff of perfection and the stuff of earth. So Arius said it's too big difference between God and humans. Jesus was the Son of God, okay, and we have to believe in him, but he wasn't actually God, because God's too wonderful and perfect and separate from all this. Athanasius says, oh no, he actually, by his resurrection, he became God. He became one with God, and that is the stuff. And they believe that Jesus had in him not only the stuff, the substance, the philosophical substance of humanity, but he also had this philosophical stuff, the substance of God. So that was the debate in the 3rd century. There was debated hotly and not very nicely. And the Emperor Constantine couldn't stand all of his people fighting with each other, and he called a council. And he held it in the city of Nicaea, Nicata, in Turkey, actually. And they duked it out in debate, and Athanasius basically talked everybody into agreeing with him. And they decided that Jesus was indeed God, and that indeed the idea of the Trinity captured that whole sense, that Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, they're all God. Jesus was God. And that was the decision of the Council of Nicaea. And that meant that Arius was no longer a proper Christian because he didn't believe in Jesus God. And that was a decision that was made by a vote of everybody who was present at the Council of Nicaea. That's how ideas of God get worked out in real religions. And how it's very interesting to notice that these are ideas about God. And we may or may not think that that really gets us the notion about God that we really want to believe in, but that's the history of Christianity. So Christianity's idea of God is the idea of Trinity, and Jesus was human and then also was God, is a major piece of our understanding of the ideas of God in Christianity. And it goes back to this history. So I just want you to have a sense in your perspective on ideas of God that it connects with real human beings, Arius and Athanasius, who are Africans, by the way, North Africans, based on some philosophical talk about what is and what isn't God stuff. And it got decided at an actual meeting, a council meeting or a synod, where everybody got together and debated it, and then they voted. That's how this works. So that's why I want you to remember Arius and Plato. And if you can come up with a remembering that, then there is a famous creed, the Nicene Creed, that lots of Catholic and Orthodox churches say every Sunday. Little piece of Christian history to review. Questions about that?
No question. I don't.
All right. I bet we about worn ourselves out. Are you so full up you can't imagine anymore? All right. Any other questions? I'll give you in the video for Monday, I'll give you a whole nother bunch of stuff to kind of things to hang your thinking and your studying about for the final. On Wednesday, we'll do some more of this review and go over stuff that it's important for you to have in your mind as you're preparing to finish up the semester and do the final. The way to say, so did you learn some stuff is the whole question. That's what we're about. Anything else you want to chew on, ask about, argue? You could argue. We haven't had any good arguments yet today. That was very big in early Christianity. Had lots of arguments. Still do.
Yes. A lot of debates. Yeah.
Still do. Well, okay. I hope you find enough calm in your lives as you're trying to finish up catching up all of your stuff. If you have problems with getting stuff in and catching up, please let me know and I can help if I can. Um, know that this class is about you succeeding, not failing. I want you to succeed if at all possible, if I can help you. I love you. I want you to do well. I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.